It's always a challenge and it's always good fun. With Antipodes, it's just a rock in the middle of the ocean, and we have to find a spot around the island, if we can, where we can anchor up.
The thing about these places, the Kiwis, the islands, that these are the most pristine and difficult to get to.
Antipodes is incredibly isolated. The only real way to get there is by boat.
It's a real privilege to go there.
You know, Antipodes Islands stand out like jewels in the crown in the subantarctic, eh? So we'd been, you know, you'd been aching to come to these places.
They're the untouched holy grail of biodiversity in the Southern Ocean.
So there's always something new to learn about the places as well while you're at it.
Antipodes Island's been visited by researchers for the last 35 years, maybe even more.
So we've measured and counted everything else.
And everything's lost its blood around here to us. Yeah.
My old man was here with the Wildlife Service in 1978. He was pretty much my age. They were here back in the day doing a whole lot of research, doing some albatross banding, and yeah, a pretty cool trip.
At about that time, wandering albatross were being killed in huge numbers, so everybody's very worried about their future.
But we just decided that we just couldn't not find out what was happening at that point.
I mean, we got into it because of the albatrosses.
Yeah.
All right, you ready? Pop, pop. Round pleasant.
Go for it.
He's googly and oily. Take a leg.
They don't seem to mind having jewellery attached because they don't mind when we come back. You know, they don't seem to object in a way that an adult does. 35.37. I think they think, I mean, that's the most interesting thing that's happened to them all year, really. Should we do the check before he goes, though? He's sort of quite ready, Gray.
He's really ready to go.
He's taking off to the far horizon.
The remote Antipodes Islands are 760 kilometres southeast of New Zealand.
Starving mice attack a defenceless albatross chick in the subantarctic.
Conservationists try to save native birds and plants there.
But sealers introduced mice to the windswept rock last century.
It's believed mice got here with sealers or with a shipwreck, so we've had a couple of shipwrecks here, but early 1900s, just as a stowaway on vessels. When it's not windy, it's usually foggy and misty. Huge swell coming in a lot of the time, especially on the south and the windward side. 200,000 mice they estimate. Incredible number, eh? Around up to 150 per hectare, which is just insane. Mouse's diet, feeding on seeds, on invertebrate, and even eggs. On other islands, it's been observed that mice have had a prey switch and actually started predating on large birds, like the albatross and stuff. And there's been scalping. There's been, you know, gangs of 20 mice ganging up on an albatross and slowly eating it to death, which is pretty horrific. So that hasn't been seen at Antipodes, but we want to act before it does happen. My name's Finlay Cox, and I'm the team leader for the monitoring trip. My job back at home at the mainland is in an animal threats role, so controlling pests. And eradication is just doing it once, doing it right, removing the species completely. You do one operation, you drop poison across the island and take that species, that pest, off the island forever. We're using Bradifacoum, which is a cereal pellet. You can get it in the supermarket basically. The idea is we're aerially applying it so we can get each individual pellet, which has enough toxin in it to kill an individual, in every home range of every mouse here. When you're talking 200,000 mice, it's a pretty big job. Got an ask for a better team. We've got a couple of dog handlers, camp manager, Juza, who was involved in the early stages of the planning for this project, a couple of fit, keen people running around doing the tracking tunnels and some distance sampling for the parakeets and the other bird species, and then we've got a couple of entomologists doing some pretty cool work with moths and light traps and pitfalls, just repeating some of the measures we did before the eradication.
I'm Juza Ross, and I was part of the $1 Million Mouse planning team working with Steve Horn. It was huge really because it's never been done before, and it's an island that's fairly remote and there's no safe harbours for boats, and it was a really creative process in a way. Spent a lot of time working long hours.
Logistically so difficult. We've got no anchorage here, they're too far to fly, so we've got to get shipping, bring 3 helicopters here, not to mention all of the cargo, 65 tonnes of bait, hundreds of loads worth of gear. Yeah, no, it's a lot to do. We had to get a vessel that was prepared to take the helicopters and big enough to take the helicopters, as well as all of our gear. We broke the helicopters down, put them in the hold, sailed on down here, and then took the helicopters out, rebladed them, and then flew everything ashore. Not to mention a hangar to hold the helicopters with all the salt spray crossing over the whole island. Mice are prolific breeders, and if you take out 99% of the population and just leave a couple of individuals, even after a couple of breeding seasons they could rebound back to the same levels they were before the eradication. So if you miss a couple, you know, back to the same numbers and the same impacts that they once had. All of the helicopters have GIS, so we know exactly where they're flying.
Okay, copy that.
The bucket sprays the toxin out. The wind can push the bait away from where your flight line is. So we were looking for that sweet spot where it wasn't too windy, but enough wind to blow the fog away. We want to put bait in every home range, so we follow the helicopter's track log with GIS software with analysis to ensure that whole island has been covered and every mouse could be exposed to toxin. If a mouse finds a bait, it's going to eat it, and that's a lethal dose. You know, it just needs to find one pellet, that's enough.
There's been a breakthrough in a major mouse killing operation.
To rid the rugged and remote Antipodes island of mice has chalked up a major milestone.
Helicopter crews have spent the past 2 days spreading 32 tonnes of poison
while coping with the many challenges of operating in the harsh sub-Antarctic islands.
We did the eradication in the winter 2016. We need to do a systematic search with dogs and tracking tunnels across the island to make sure we got them all. Because if we didn't, all that effort, all that money and all that hard work will be wasted.
We're looking to see whether the eradication has actually been successful. Also, we're doing distance sampling for terrestrial bird species and monitoring for snipe, so to look at the number of snipe, pipit and parakeets that are around. You compared to pre-baiting of the island.
I'm Brian Shields and I work for Auckland Council and a biosecurity advisor for the Hauraki Gulf. This is Tui. Tui's 11 and she's a conservation dog. Come on. She's part of the monitoring team. Detect mice after the eradication. If they're still here, these guys have got a really good chance of picking up they're still about. On an island like this, these mice is quite a top priority area that we have a look around the penguins, because if the mice were here, this is one of the places they would definitely be. They like it on the verges, you know, there's lots of bits and pieces they can scavenge around a colony of penguins like this, you know. So part of the job is not just searching the interior of the island, but of the coastal side of it as well.
So yeah, we're using tracking tunnels, combing the island, looking for individuals and a population of mice. So if a mouse was in the vicinity and their home range is variable, 20 metres radius, which is quite small, well, it would be attracted to the peanut butter and run through the tunnel, walk over that inky pad to access the peanut butter, walk over the white card and show us footprints. That's all of your track logs there. So how'd you get on down here in South Bay?
Carol went down there and Piri never indicated anything in there. I did up through the back south end line there, this big loop here. Pippi was over here with me and she never indicated in that area.
Yeah.
She had a good sniff around up the back of Waterhouse. Jumping around, it's pretty hard to read them in that area. We've had a look around here and there's no indication by any of the dogs up by the campsite. We've done all the priority sites around the penguins and stuff like that. So there's not many gaps that I can see that we can actually, you know, finish that off with.
You've had a good poke around. What do you reckon?
That's really good coverage. We should send it through and see what the guy sent.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. It's one of these places that you don't get an opportunity to come to a lot. I wish more New Zealanders would experience this, and I think they would get what conservation is all about. Seen him at Tibety's parrot, seen elephant seals, seen everything in their natural, you know. This place just comes alive at night.
Seemed pretty active this evening.
Oh, what was that? Yep, see that? See those? Oh, that's great.
We've combed the whole island with the dog handlers and tracking tunnels. 7,000 device nights, which is heaps. And we're confident that we've got rid of the mice. There's no mice left on Antipodes Island.
It seems like there's a noticeable difference in the number of invertebrates around. There's the number of caterpillars on the vegetation at the moment and the number of terrestrial bird species around.
You don't often get to come to this pristine place like this where, you know, we're sitting here and there's about 4 different animals that you just wouldn't see on the mainland, just hovering around us. And if more people experience what we see here and what's going on around here, they'll get it, you know, they'll get what people are trying to do to save these animals, you know.
We've got 4 species of endemic taxa. We've got pipit, 2 species of parakeet and a snipe, and all 4 of those would have been in direct competition with mice. What's next? Well, there's always something else. Auckland's Islands has pigs, cats and mice. Department of Conservation got rid of rats off Campbell Island and sheep, and we've removed mice off Antipodes. Auckland Islands is the last subantarctic island with invasive pests on it. Antipodes is an amazing place. I mean, we're getting albatross flying over us now. Incredibly isolated. The biodiversity is incredible. These endemic species are only here. It's just a pleasure to be here and an absolute privilege to be involved in this project.